Hello, and welcome to the Business and Hustle Podcast, where the entrepreneurs give us some insight into their business and their business model. Today we have a special guest, Miss Boutte. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you so much, Jamar. I'm very delighted for you having me here.
All right, Miss Boutte is a business owner, coach, mentor, and cancer survivor.
Yes, yes,
Is that
yes.
correct?
I am. I am.
All
I am
right,
7 years in remission now. So
and congratulations on that.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now let's tell them about your business.
Delighted to. I am a tax consultant, preparer, teacher, mentor, trainer, coach. I'm also a business consultant where I help new and existing entrepreneurs learn how to form and structure businesses correctly.
Okay. So not only do you teach, not only do you do taxes, you teach
Hmm.
others how to get into the business.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I was just on a training call right before this one with two of my newest uh, partners. So, yeah,
Okay. That
very
sounds great. All right. Let's take it back a little bit. What made you want to go into business for yourself in the first place?
cool. I was kind of thrown into it, and I'm a firm believer that a lot of people, if they're comfortable, they don't want to do anything risky, right? I was one of
Mm-hmm.
those that was raised to work your job till you retire, get your pension, and live off your retirement. You know, I knew of entrepreneurship, I was very aware of it, but me myself just part of it's being lazy and the other was part of being scared. I didn't want to have to
Mm-hmm.
go out there and earn my keep every day. I just wanted to be able to sit in an office, have somebody pay me to do good job, social job, poor job, great job, whatever the case, whatever I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling that way. I didn't want to have to work hard essentially. So I just wanted to do the best I could for that day and kind of just go home and check out.
And what
And
was that
um,
pivotal moment that said, you know what? Nah, it's
yeah.
time for a change.
Yep. My company, after I finished 2 years of chemo treatment, they're not going to fire me as soon as I come back from leave. So, they waited literally 12 months almost to the day and let me know that, my services were no longer needed. And I was let go. And so, with my severance package, I just said, you know what? I guess this is now a chance for me to try it. And I started and moved into becoming an entrepreneur full time.
Okay. So one question is, did they wait 12 months to the day because to make it legal for them so that it doesn't seem like they did what they
Yeah.
actually did?
To be
Okay.
honest with you, I could not perform the job the way that I had in the past.
Mm.
So by all means, honestly, what they did wasn't, improper. The improper thing would have been, oh, as soon as I get back from work, because they knew I
Hmm.
wasn't physically, I was still on transitioning and healing. So, they did the best they could, and they were already doing layoffs elsewhere in the company
Okay.
and we know we have to get picked on a list. We know you're going down the list of names of people, and you say this one, people have conversations. I mean, that's just to be honest, that's the truth.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, so I don't fault them for letting me go. I really fault myself for um, waiting until I had to get to that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, why tax prep?
Mhm.
Were you doing that in the job you were doing?
No, actually, I was a trainer, coach, a sales manager, retention manager. I managed in the call center, so I was managing retail and call center employees.
Okay. All right. So, one
So how
second.
I got into tax prep?
Correct. That was my next question.
It was something I had always done. I was always fascinated with taxes. I remember as a little girl when the forms would be in the library or in the post office, and we would have to go pick them up. and fill out all the forms. And when the guy used to come to my parents' house to do their taxes, I would be like, here's my forms, and this is what I did so far. And he'd be like, oh my gosh, you're really good at this for such a young age. And I was just always fascinated by it. I love filling out forms. I love, paperwork. I was one of those people. Okay. And
Okay.
so I used to always do, the taxes for our family. And,
Okay.
and then I started doing them for everybody else, but I never made it like a real full time kind of career. I just kind of, did maybe 10 or 15, a year and just kept it moving.
Right. Okay. And then.
And then things kind of just get thrown in my face, and I was online, and there was a another entrepreneur who was saying, hey, we'll be happy to get you trained, get you ready for tax season. And after working with them for a few years, I said, you know what, I can do this. And I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to have something that had more of my spin on it. And so I started my own firm, and um, now I have tax professionals all over the United States that work virtually. I also am myself virtual. I, do anywhere from, some tax professionals do anywhere from 500, returns and up. And so we have the opportunity of really making, a large amount of money in a small time.
Okay. So by definition, what is as a tax professional? When I think of a tax professional, I'm thinking somebody that basically just does taxes. Is
Mhm.
that is that the gist of it? No accounting, no bookkeeping. Just come, let's say 3 months out the year, make all your
Mhm.
money. That's what we used to when we was there. Man, you get 3 months, you make all your money for the whole year.
Yeah, yeah, it is somewhat like that, and that is how I started. However, because I do have accounting education, I also, have the ability to do bookkeeping. I actually have bookkeepers that are part of my staff. I am also a tax trainer, so I train other tax professionals. I also do business taxes, so I do oftentimes do taxes of a lot of tax business partners, because most people are just trained in how to do just general taxes. So I do business taxes. I also sell tax software. I educate people on how to form their tax business properly and what they need to get started. So I do come full circle with it. Most
Okay.
people are aware. I just launched a software web hosting platform this year. Most tax professionals don't have a website, or it's really difficult to store information because we have requirements from the IRS. So I created, well, I didn't create, I purchased people to be able to create, web hosting for our tax partners and professionals, and I also help tax professionals, get a business email as well. Something that is part of their business name, or something very generic where it's not a gmail.com or Yahoo.
Hmm. Uh,
Hmm.
a few years ago, didn't they change the rules of that? Which kind of it was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago that it was like they was trying to get people from doing taxes from home. It was something I can't think of what it was, but
There
uh,
have been a lot of initiatives where, you know, they wanted certain standards for tax professionals, which unfortunately a lot of people don't know. There really is not any. Anyone can become a tax professional. You don't have to have any previous experience. You don't. There's no licensing or certification for it. It is literally just registering with the IRS. So, one of the things you do want to ask your tax professional is how long have they been in the business? How many tax returns do they do a tax season? The IRS did want to kind of, well, not the IRS, but there was some request to kind of make the platform of doing taxes, more legal, and it fell through. It didn't get approved through Congress. So, really, what tax professionals on their own have done is said, you know what, I'm going to go out and get these extra courses because I want to differentiate myself from someone else who's not educated. Okay. And, it is now okay. It has been for a while to do tax returns virtually. And now, because of everything that happened with COVID, it's actually better to do them virtually than it is to go into a tax office because it's safer. You
Right.
don't have to sit around a bunch of crowded people. I mean, even without COVID, you have flu, you have shingles, you have all these different things that folks are having to be careful of now, that it's much safer to get them done virtually than it is to go into an office and sit there.
All
So
right.
yeah, there's a lot of different ways that people, are doing taxes this season.
Okay, so let's move over to the coaching part.
Okay.
All right, because a lot of my audience are people would think about getting into business, considering it, or
Hmm.
already in business.
Yep.
So, what is it that first? What is it that people don't know about taxes? Just your average person. What is that the average person don't know about taxes? And say, man, I can do this myself. I can grab some. What is it? The
TurboTax or something.
TurboTax. Yeah, and
Yep.
just say, you know
Yep.
what? Give me that. What is it that they don't know?
To be honest with you, most people don't know what they really can write off. There's a lot of books out there, and I see them. I actually have and own them, so I can kind of educate clients when I'm meeting with them. Is that they don't realize that while you may be able to deduct certain things, the deductions vary depending on your industry, right?
Right.
So, like yourself. You have a podcast, so your headphones, your microphone. If you have purchased one, this year, maybe something you can deduct, the chair you're sitting in, that's all part of your office equipment, right? But you may not be able to deduct, say for instance, skincare. Okay.
Right.
Because your business is not a skincare business. Your business is communicating. So your expenses are going to be based upon communication, not necessarily what you spend on taking care of yourself so you can look a certain way for your podcast. So whereas you may not get a write-off for skincare products, and an esthetician or someone who works in that industry would. So it really is, something that you spend a lot of time researching with clients before you file their return, especially business clients. And so a lot of times, individuals will be like, well, I donated money to, some homeless people, and I'm going to write that off. Well, no offense. That's great that donated some money to homeless people, but that's not considered a 501(c)(3). So that's not considered a donation, a charitable donation. A charitable donation must come with documentation, must come with a receipt, must come with that you gave money to a registered 501(c)(3). Whereas you giving it to a homeless person is, great, it's heartwarming, but it's not tax deductible.
Okay.
So a lot of times, people will assume that what they did is tax deductible, or they went on a trip. It was a business trip for their job. Well, as an employee of a W 2 job, those expenses are not deductible. If you were an entrepreneur and you had your own business and you went on a business trip, and that business trip was in relationship to the type of business that you're in, it may be deductible, a certain portion of it. But then again, it goes into asking the questions. How long was the trip? What was it there for? What were some of the things you covered on that business trip? Did you go for any other reason besides business? How much time did you spend on it? So there's a lot of fact checking that we're required to do in order to make sure those credits are valid.
Okay. So another thing is tax strategist.
Hmm.
What is meant by tax strategist?
Tax strategist is someone who is letting you know at the beginning of tax season or before that tax year starts that there are some things that you can do that are going to help reduce your tax liability. Okay. And part of that is tax strategists and tax planners oftentimes work together because they can help you determine, hey, did you know because of your age, you might be able to put back an extra $1,000 of money into your IRA, whereas somebody who's under 30 cannot because you're closer to retirement. So that would be a strategy I would employ with my clients every year because it lowers your taxable income. That's how you see so many of these $200,000 plus people walk away with very little tax debt because they're strategizing and it's being planned ahead of the tax season. So before the tax year even starts, they know I have to put 10 grand into an IRA, or so much money into a 401k, or I know I need to purchase a home, by the end of this year, or, donate to a charity in X amount of dollars. So they go into the year already knowing the different strategies that they're going to use to reduce their tax liability.
Okay. So they'll work together, but that being a tax strategist is a completely different avenue.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Wow. You told me something right there. I was always wondering what that was.
Hmm.
Business versus personal tax. So
Yes.
there's not many write-offs with personal taxes.
There is not. There's the standard deductions, and you'll hear it used often. Standard deductions versus itemized deductions. Most people can itemize if they receive income different ways. If they receive income maybe through 401k or some kind of dividends they receive, cryptocurrency. There's going to be some ways to itemize, but most people don't realize that they're only going to be eligible for standard deductions. And that just simply means that if the standard deduction is $300 for cash gifts, then, even if you give away, $5,000, you're only going to be able to deduct a certain dollar amount unless you have a proven receipt from those charitable donations. And the same thing with most individuals. You get a standard deduction if you're married filing jointly. Okay, you don't itemize that deduction. It's standard. That's your status. That's what you receive. Whereas a business person who is married filing jointly, who also has a business, can now itemize because there may be other deductions they can take versus that individual person. So that's one of the reasons why you see so many people who are wealthy who are also entrepreneurs, because it is a way for them to reduce their tax liability. It is smart for you to have a business and to be above average income, because you will probably pay less taxes than somebody who's just working a regular W-2 job.
So does it help if someone does have a W-2 job to have a business on the side? Is that more valuable than just being a W-2?
It is absolutely. I know a lot of people who make, over 100K a year, and the majority of them are also have a side business. They may have a landscaping company. Some may cut hair. They own salons. They may rent out property. They may, hire people. They may have started their own kind of, rental car, like through Turo, or started, an Airbnb business. A lot of people have businesses because they look at their tax liability every year and they go, there's got to be a better way. And some of that taxable income would be reduced by deductions that they would be eligible for as somebody who was self-employed.
Okay. So now let's reach over to the business and the hustle side of the
Mhm.
game. All
Yes.
right. So you got somebody watching this, like, man, you know what? I heard about the tax game. What kind of money we talking about? I'm sure that's one of the first questions I'm going to ask you.
That
Okay,
is
you
one
want
of the first questions. And it is my very first tax year, my very first deposit. And this is literally 3 months of being, I was let go in February, and I think I got my first deposit at the end of March. And my first deposit was over 10 grand. And that was the first deposit. So, everybody else is talking about, oh, I got 5 or 6 grand from their tax return and they're all celebrating. Well, I'm getting deposits like that almost every 2 weeks. So you do have the ability to make well over, you know, um, you know, 5 figures easy the first tax season. The only difference between people that do and people that don't really is just how motivated they are. How hard are you willing to work, to make that happen? It's not going to happen on its own. It's just like with you. You're not just going to sit here and make money. You have to go work for it. And so a lot of people come into the industry thinking they're not going to have to train. They're not going to have a coach. They don't need a mentor. They don't need tools. They don't need, a whole lot of this. Just sit here and tap some stuff into the computer and make money. And that's not the case. But I have, I train and I coach, tax offices to 5 and 6 figures. And once you've made that 6 figure target, you want to now sustain it. How can you sustain it and then continue to scale your business? Because as you know, a person, tax preparation is a service.
Hmm.
So service industry is hard to scale unless you have other people that are going to work in it. And
Right.
that's probably the hardest thing to get people to understand. You might be stuck at that revenue because you haven't been able to correctly, add other professionals to help improve your bottom line. And so, I know more 6 figure earners in the tax prep industry than I ever knew out in any other industry that I've worked in as an entrepreneur. So this is definitely one. It can be done within. I've had some people come out right out the gate and earn 5 and 6 figures, and I've had some people do it in 2 to 3 years. But it is something that is an easy goal to hit, so long as you got to do the work. It's not gonna, you can't make money off of trees.
Right. Okay. So when you consider tax season, how long is the tax season?
Season, we call it season because from January to April, when Iris closes the window, that's what most people call tax season. To be honest with you, tax filing, you can file from anywhere sometime in January all the way till the middle of the end of November. So for, I don't want to say real tax offices, but for most tax professionals, we're not working just for months. We're working all year just like you are. It's just that the pace that we're working is different in January, February, March than it is the rest of the year. Whereas my office hours might be, open to close from January to April. During the slower part of the season, I may only be open 5 hours a day. I only open Tuesday through Friday from 12 to 5. And that's just to touch base with clients who've done extensions, for my clients who, have quarterly taxes to pay, who have sales tax to pay. There's other things that are required as well. So some of us, like me, I won't take a break from until Thanksgiving until the new year. So that'll
Oh,
be like 6 weeks off.
okay. So how does somebody get clients? So you just got to walk around and it seems like everybody got to pay taxes,
Hmm.
but how? What's the process in getting clients? Just your everyday person. That,
I will tell you the best way to get clients is through referrals. If you do one tax return, excellent. Your clients will bring you business left and right. The second best way I would say would be, social media marketing. You have your TikToks, you have your Facebook, Instagram, especially for a virtual office like myself. 99% of my marketing is done online. I very rarely, actually, to be honest with you, in the years that I've been doing Texas, I have yet to place a flyer on any door, window, or car. So, that's not how I market. I use the SEOs, I use the Google My Business, I use referrals. I market myself on other different platforms and groups so that people can become familiar with what I do. So there are a plethora of places and ways for tax professionals to market themselves. I was voting today, and there was a tax professional outside passing out business cards, and I thought I
right.
was getting the candidate's information. And looked down, and it's actually information about her tax office. And I'm like, "Oh, tax office too." I said, "Good idea. I hadn't thought about that one." She was just out
Right.
there passing out flyers like everybody else. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Catching those people might as well while you got them.
Like I said, I did not think of that. So, that might be something I add to my hustle next year,
Right.
when next tax selection season. Maybe I just stand out there like I'm giving away, Republican and Democratic flyers and give people my business information.
The vote hustle. You're gonna get the vote hustle
Hey,
going
look,
on.
look. Any way you make money, there's never been a person that complains about how much money they make, unless you're not making enough. So
Exactly.
as long as you're making revenue, there's no bad there's no bad marketing, I guess.
So, what do you encourage people to start with? Your W-2 employees or with the 1099 employees?
Yes.
Well,
I
not
would
employees, but business owners.
Yes, I would definitely have tax professionals start with W-2 employees. It is. a lot easier to learn. It is the primary way most of us learn how to use the software and also how to communicate, interview our clients, and what to document. There's so much stuff that you have to learn when it comes to just, we call them simpler returns, because 99% of it, is taught to you in your classes. Whereas with business returns, every situation can be different. So that's not something I would encourage anybody to start off first. It's kind of like I'm driving a Ferrari when you haven't learned how to drive a Fiat yet. So
Right, right. Because of the deductions that you want to make sure
yeah,
somebody get you. So would you recommend somebody stay with somebody in the same industry, so they can be familiar with the deductions that go on with this particular company, because you don't want to miss some with you
yeah.
doing random companies. So with
We do have niches where we have a lot of tax professionals that only work with truckers. We have some professionals who only do barbers and hair salons.
right,
I have one of my peers and one of my business partners. She only works with adult entertainers who are in a cash only business because, one, there's a need for it. Two, a lot of people don't want to interact with people who are in a cash only business, and sometimes people can be a little bit judgy when it comes to certain industries. So
right.
there's always an industry out there that somebody's kind of forgotten about. Multi-level marketing people who might be your Mary Kays and your Avon ladies and your Scentsy people. Those people forget that they're actually working in business. Your gig drivers, your door dashers or your Ubers, those are those are self-employed people, so
Right.
those are business. So it can be a little bit more difficult to understand what they can deduct and what they can't, because sometimes they haven't taken the time out to separate their business and personal.
Right, which is a big problem.
That's the biggest problem. You need to have a business bank account. Even if it's not a business bank account per se, and it's a second personal account, you can't commingle it with your personal funds. So business and personal need to be separate in order for it to at least begin the stages of a legit business versus a hobby.
Okay, so basically, so you can your coaching program. So
Hmm.
you can basically have a student basically working 4 months out the year,
Yep.
easier route with W-2 people,
Yep.
and close out after 4 months and back to the next year,
Yep.
and bring in 10.
40. Yep. I just tell people they're going to start roughly at about 5 to 10 grand, and depending on if they can do 100 clients or not, they'll clear 300 clients, $300 a client at 100 clients. That's going to give them a little change, right? And then you're going to do that, multiply that by however many weeks in the tax season. So a lot of times, first year folks will clear about $30,000,
Right.
as a tax professional, which some people, make in a whole year. So it gives you, some options. It's a good add-on, especially for those folks who are working a W-2 job and are making 56 a year, and they're trying to get over that, whatever hump there is, because that 30 or $40,000, one, it makes them a business owner, so now they have deductions they can take, and two, they learn how to do taxes for themselves and their family. And
Right.
now they've got a great, hey, there's nothing wrong with calling that a great hustle,
Right.
you
Right.
know, a great hustle for them to add on. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist. I can teach anybody how to do a tax return.
How young?
Absolutely.
How young?
Mhm. Um, as long as they're legally over the age of 18, you have to be 18 in the United States to get a prepared tax identification number. And as long as they're able to pass that, and you know, they're coachable, and because people do assume that you're going to give them clients. They come in thinking, I'm going to work with you because I know you got a lot of clients. Well, those are my clients. If I hire you, then it's different than you being the tax professional that brought in the clientele. You may make an hourly wage, which is how it works at most of the Jackson Hewitts and the H&R
Mm-hmm.
Blocks. They just get paid hourly. See, I get paid per return. So that revenue, if I charge $300 a return, that's 100% my money. And
Okay.
so, I just do that a couple hundred times, and I'm good. You know,
What would you charge for a business owner?
business taxes I start at 499. Average tax return for business owners is roughly about $1,000.
Oh, okay. That's what you. I'm glad you said that because I was about to get mad. They charged me $900 at tax time. I was like, you said 450. I'm going to cut somebody out.
Most folks that are like 450, 495, those would be, smaller businesses, maybe, not as many deductions. They might have a 1099. So, where all the income is coming from. So, I don't have to go in and document it. I'm not bookkeeping. I'm not doing a lot of other stuff behind the scenes. I'm not having to go back and re-question or re-qualify or re-interview to get clarification. So a lot of times what happens is with the cost of returns, it's how much interviewing, how much verification we have to do, how much documentation we're responsible for, because we're assessing to the IRS that we have verified your information to be valid.
Right.
And so that's why not everybody's audited, because they go through and they say, well, we're going to go and audit maybe 10 or 15% of these returns. Um, and so I always try to prepare a return as though I'm being audited that same day. Like somebody's coming right behind me, I'm looking at this return. So I always try to make sure all my stuff is documented well, my questions are clear and concise, and if it's not been answered, to go back and clarify and make sure that I have all that documentation in place.
Who gets in trouble when if the information on there is wrong or just incomplete or fraudulent?
Well, that's different. Now, there is something called due diligence that a tax professional is supposed to take when it comes to interviewing clients. And we are supposed to make every attempt to make sure that information is not incorrect, inconsistent, or fraudulent. So, as I was saying earlier about the clarifying questions, if you tell me, oh, I don't have any of my receipts for any of my purchases that I made for this whole tax year, that may be reasonable. That happens. I'm the biggest receipt thrower outer of them all, and I'm a bookkeeper and a tax professional. Okay, but I take pictures of my receipts before I throw them out. I write down who it is that I'm working with or what I purchased, and I also take I document my bank statements when I get them, right? I put copies down and I write, oh, this meeting was for XYZ. I also confirm it with my calendar. So if you mean to tell me that, say, for instance, you are a landscaper, right? And you just went out and spent, I don't know, $4 or $5,000 on a lawnmower, and you then turn around and say, I don't have a receipt. Okay, so Mr. Client, I understand you may not think you have the receipt for this lawnmower, but just out of habit, do you normally make large purchases without keeping the receipt for those very large purchases for warranty purposes or anything? And most people will say, no, I actually keep the receipt or the box or something for the warranty, because if something happens to it, I have to prove that I purchased it. So sometimes you can help jog somebody's memory about where they may have kept the documentation. It may not be with the bank stuff, it might be in the garage or someplace else. But most people will remember where that receipt is for those large purchases. Now, a notebook, you may not have kept the receipt for the notebook. That makes sense. But if I can see on your bank statement that you went to Staples, 5 times last month, I'm going to assume by after asking some qualifying questions, were any of those purchases for your business? Were you just making copies of paper? Were you getting stuff for your kids for school? What were those purchases for? And if they can recall that some of those were business related, we can reconstruct that income in those expenses.
Okay. Is a credit card statement, does that qualify as a receipt?
It can help clarify what you said, but no. It's actually better to have the actual receipt with the item up there, because kind of how I use Walmart, right? A lot of people like to shop at Walmart, but Walmart carries things that a business owner could use or deduct, and there's things that they can't claim, right? So if you use your credit card at Walmart for $700, how do I know that wasn't a TV?
Right.
How do we verify that that was in paint for your house instead of for your business? So a lot of times it is better to have the receipt because the receipt is going to detail what that expense was.
Okay. Okay. Oh, your program.
Mhm.
Talk to me about your program.
Well, the program that I have as far as for clients, one of the things that I try to do is work with them, especially for our business clients throughout the year, at least once every 3 months. And that means going over their books and their bookkeeping, making sure they're using the tools that I've given them to monitor their mileage so we can correctly deduct it under expenses, going over and making sure they don't commingle funds. So, that's again, like I was saying earlier with the strategy, that those are things that are going to be in place because you want to make sure they get the most money, to, not deducted, but they have the ability to, have as many deductions as they're allowed to reduce their liability, but also to make sure that they qualify for things like business credit and also, mortgages and loans. You don't ever want to write off, a person who made over $100,000 in business and write off $80,000 because that leaves them with $20,000 in income, and that's not going to help qualify them for a lot of things. So, I work very closely with my business clients to make sure they understand exactly what the expectation is with them on a weekly basis. Some of them meet with me, even more often than that. I have some of my clients that literally won't make a purchase without calling me first. So, it really just depends on how much they trust you and how much you develop a relationship with them.
Okay. Now that's you coaching businesses on how to do their
Yes.
stuff right. Do you also have basically a
So,
coaching program for students that want to be
yes.
DD Boutte?
Yes, yes. And those, I tell you, it's like half of one, half of the other. The same way they reach out, they have I have a secure client portal that my tax professionals are in. They have the ability to we do weekly scheduled trainings. Like I have a training right now every Wednesday and Friday night. For a couple of hours where we go over some of the basics. We do role play, we do certain scenarios in tax situations, so that they can become proficient. I become the client. I expect certain things to be asked when someone's doing a tax interview. And so I teach them how to do everything from soup to nuts, how to use the software, how to interview clients, how to market for clients, how to, if a client has a letter, how to handle those situations. If they get something and they feel like something was done incorrectly, and also how to be available, all year long. A client doesn't want to hear that, well, tax office is closed until January if something happens in July. And so, you have to have a way that's going to provide that communication for them even during those slower months.
Okay, so your software, your program, and the software you use is that basically you follow this? These are the questions you need to ask. These are so basically it's basically an interview style
Yeah.
software. You Here's a question to ask. Here's where to put the
Hmm.
answer, and then we pretty much going to spit out the right information,
Yep.
or spit out the next question to ask.
Yep, it's going to do both. It's going to give them information, and it is also going to make sure that they ask the next correct question. And even if one of my tax professionals, and then really I do call them partners. If one of my partners, gets stuck on something, if they're unsure about it, they always have the ability to save it. Hey, let me come back to this. I'm working with, someone who's been in the industry for over 20 years. I'm working with my mentor, and she does everything from corporate taxes to individual, so she may have a better outlook on what it is that we're doing. So one of the things as part of being a mentor as well is also letting your tax professional and your team know that you're available for them during that training stage. Because if you go through a training class at H&R Block and you finish and you pass and you get your little certification or your piece of paper saying you completed so many hours of training, is that same person going to be the one that you can go back and ask questions to all year long? Or are they
Right.
going to say, no, you work here, you go ask those people? And that's kind of the difference. That was one of the things that I heard a lot from people that got into the industry. They really didn't have anybody to help teach them what were the next steps. And so in my program, what I do with my tax partners is we start from the basics. I make sure that everyone has an opportunity to go through basic training. I don't care if you've been a tax professional for 15 years. I want to go through the basics. I want you to let you know the standard I expect if you're going to be affiliated, or a partner with me. And so I start from everything from the basics to the more complicated returns. So I tell people I'm trying to teach you everything that I know. I don't want you working for me for 15 years. I want you to go out there and build your own tax business because there's more than enough out here for everybody to eat.
So, uh, when you come to the business tax part, is it like a let's say you doing trucking because I have trucks.
Uh-huh.
So is there a I know it's not a end all be all software. So how do they know the questions to ask? Okay, now we're in the trucking industry. Does it help you out with different industries or give you
No.
just a base? Okay, so
Nope. That comes from training. That's the reason why you do want a good partner or a good trainer, coach, or mentor, because a lot of times, the first year, they're just out, tax professionals are just out there. They're just willing to take anybody and everybody. They don't care who you are. They're just trying to build up a clientele. And then they start to learn that it takes me longer to do a trucking return than it does a real estate agent because maybe I'm more comfortable with real estate than I am with trucking. I don't know the requirements when you have a 6,000 pound
right,
vehicle, what other taxes you may owe. But if you sell a house, I know that commission is taxable. You know what I mean? So
right,
there's always going to be different platforms that have different requirements. And so there's nothing wrong with asking a tax professional, hey, do you specialize or how often do you do truck returns for people in the trucking industry? If they say I do one or two, that might be your cue to go find somebody. Hey, I'm
right,
looking for a tax professional that specializes in trucking. Now, me myself personally, I have done truck driver returns as part of being part of the small business. However, if I can train somebody in my office to be my trucking specialist,
right,
then whenever if somebody comes in that needs trucking or has a truck driver or is an owner operator, I'm going to say, hey, Dorcas, you're going to be my person that's going to handle all my truck returns because I don't have the time to niche down into everything that they need because I'm working on real estate, brokers. And do you mind being my trucking person?
right,
So, even if you're not the particular person and you have a tax firm like I do, it's nothing wrong with saying I want to have people in different industries. Nursing, traveling nurses is another big one. People don't know what they can and cannot deduct. People don't
right.
realize some traveling nurses work for a job, a W-2. Some are independent contractors. So you also have to know what questions to ask and when, and then how to then find, value.
Does it
In,
help when they have like I think I know like with QuickBooks you have where people can you have the main software and then you have somebody can overlay it with different industries.
yep, yep.
Does that help or is
It
that still general?
still general, and it does help because I'm actually, somebody who uses QuickBooks. I'm a fan of QuickBooks. That's one of the tools that I try to make sure that our business clients have or use, or even if they use the app that comes on the phone. I'm a big
Right,
proponent. I use the app. I tell people all the time. You think I don't use something to keep track of my expenses?
right,
Absolutely, I do. Okay. Just because I'm a tax professional doesn't mean it's different for me. It's the same as it is for you. I have to keep track of my expenses, my mileage. I have to document what I used it for because otherwise it can be invalidated just by simply saying I went to my mother's house and I thought I went to a business meeting. Okay.
right.
Now you're commingling, so now all your other deductions can come into question. And so QuickBooks does tap into certain industries, which is great because that's a flag for the tax professional to know, oh, he's already got everything lined up for me. But, there's always an opportunity that there's something that they may not know. Maybe some new software out there for trucking that, QuickBooks doesn't know anything about. And now you're using it because it just came online. There's always somebody, if they know it's in the industry, it's always better for them to because we can think out the box. We have the ability to just be like, oh, you know what? Did you go to a trucking conference? Is there some new business credit now that you can apply for? So you have a loan now for, something that we need to write off. Is this an asset? Is this been depreciated correctly? We want to go back and see how many years did they depreciate your truck for. So there's so many other questions sometimes that you need to ask. Do I need to pay taxes in other states because you're an owner operator? So there's things that sometimes it is better to have somebody kind of just question and just kind of reiterate to make sure that that business person is aware that, oh wow, there is industry software is great, but having somebody who is industry specific is even better.
All right. The costs. Let's talk about the costs. I want to work with. I want to become DD Boutte Tax
Okay.
Pro,
Yeah.
and getting your program. What is it gonna set me back?
Most of the people that want to do everything that I do, my program starts anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500. Just to become a tax professional is a lot less. I start those programs around $250, $300, and that will get you training and access to software. And then there's some programs in between for people that want to do more than the beginner stage, but are not quite for the expert stage, and somewhere in the middle is roughly about $1,000.
Okay. So where do I get with the top program?
So with the top program, I'm going to show you everything that I do and exactly how I do it. Not only do you get one-on-one coaching with me, but you get the top tier part of the software. You also then have the ability to go back and sell that program yourself to create revenue. I make sure that you are set up as a business. So you have your EIN, you have your business email, you have a business phone number. I also make sure that you're going to receive 100% of all your fees, so you're going to get all your revenue from that office as well. Whereas some of the smaller programs, because you're new, you may have to pay out some of your fees to somebody who you're working under because they're having to spend so much time working with you that they may lose revenue elsewhere. So a lot of those low man on the totem pole, so to speak, are new people. They pay out a small percentage, either 25 or 30% of their revenue to work underneath somebody so they can get that one-on-one on-hand training.
Okay. So how does the one-on-one work with you guys? Like weekly
Yes,
one-on-one? How was it? Give me a call. How
yes,
does the one-on-one work? That's probably the more important part of this
yes,
is actually being able to talk to somebody when you have an issue.
yes.
How does that work?
I do 2 hour training sessions with each one of my mentees. I take on only a certain number of mentees each year so that I have the ability to continue coaching them. Um, and that's part of the mentorship program. If people want coaching, my coaching is at an hour, and those are in more group settings where people who are all at the same level want to receive the same information, and they want the ability to be able to know what direction to take next. And then my training, those are done in, once a month trainings where they get to, in a group setting where they're going to have 2 or 3 hours to spend on, okay, what's the next thing I need to learn in order to become a tax professional. So each one they have the ability to schedule on their own leisure. I set up some times that are available, and folks can schedule their time one-on-one with me, and we go over different tasks that we set up for certain time periods. So I always try to make sure our tasks are smart, goals, right? Something that's specific, measurable, attainable, and reached within a time period. So we always try to set goals for what it is that we're working on and what we expect to see by a certain time frame, and that's in each one of the platforms. I don't want people just running around kind of like I don't know what to do next. So we need to have something that's specific, that's measurable, that they can actually accomplish, and that's really how you know whether or not you're going to be a good tax professional or not. You don't need to be great at math, but you also need to understand what your weak and your strong points are. And if you can, overcome maybe something like math is not your best strong suit, like maybe you can't do certain equations in your head or without a calculator, that's fine. We all use calculators, but you also want to be able to understand what the client is asking you. So that's where a lot of the tax training comes in.
Okay. And how much is that top tier?
The top tier, for me, runs between 2,500 and 3,500.
Okay, that's extremely reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
That's extremely reasonable.
Yeah,
Kind of
seems
even
think so.
ex Uber reasonable in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's just some good information. Let's switch gears a little bit because you pretty much broke that thing down like you done had a conversation like this before. So okay, trip you up with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's switch gears. You are a cancer survivor.
Yes, I am.
You are a cancer survivor. What do you want? What should people know about cancer?
That the if I could tell anybody who's either afraid of cancer or gone through it, or is a new diagnosis, I would just tell them it's not the end of the world. And the reason why I say that is because I was diagnosed stage 4 with invasive ductal carcinoma. Um, I was given, 6 months to live with treatment, 2 years to live. I'm sorry, 6 months to live without treatment and 2 years to live with treatment, and that was 7 years ago, as of August of this year. And to sit in an office and hear someone tell you, we apologize, we're sorry, we were unaware that your cancer had, become so invasive and metastasized to so many different areas. We do think it's best that you go home and make your arrangements with your family and spend as much time with them as you can. Um, had I did what those folks probably told me to do, I probably would be dead. But I was an advocate of my own health. And Google is never your friend when you're dealing
Mhm.
with medical things, because there's so many different aspects to medical that you need to take into consideration. But I am a very big proponent of second and third opinions. Not that she didn't say something I didn't want to hear. I wasn't sick. And not that you feel sick when you have cancer, but you feel pain, especially for stage 4. Okay. And it was an extreme amount of pain, but I had only been in the pain for approximately maybe 2 weeks at that point in time when I went to go sit from my first chemotherapy um, infusion. And so I didn't feel that stage 4. I just didn't agree. I mean, okay, as you can see, I'm a little fluffy, so I'm not, somebody who's, running marathons over here. Okay, I walked every day. I was, in a very, um, you know, a job that required me to be on my feet for 10, 12 hours. I was coaching, teaching people in a call center environment. And if you've ever been in one of those, you're not a sit down kind of person. You sit down maybe for a few hours a day, but you're interacting with people, you're listening to calls, you're coaching people, you're constantly, on the move. And I just didn't feel sick. I had some pain in my chest, which is why I went to the doctor. It was excruciating, and I knew I had cancer. Mostly because my grandmother was a breast cancer
Right.
survivor. My aunt, unfortunately, had passed away a few years before. Then I had another aunt who was also on the same side of the family. All these are the same side, also who had breast cancer. And I don't know. I knew I had breast cancer, but I knew I wasn't dying of breast cancer.
Right.
And so I just started asking questions. I called my insurance company. What would you do? This is my diagnosis. You can see it. You can see my insurance. What are my options? They told me to get the hell out of my state. They told me to try some other places. They gave me a list of places I could go to. I started calling these places. If I didn't like their answers or the way they were treating me, I moved on to the next one. I became an advocate of my own care. And once I did that, people learned how they had to treat me. And they learned that you can't just tell her something and walk away if she doesn't understand it. You have to make her understand it in her terms. And if she asks questions, you need to be able to answer those questions to the best of your ability until she's satisfied. And if someone told me something that I didn't like or didn't make me happy, I'm like, well, what other choices do I have? Oh, there's no other choices. But there's got to be another choice, because I'm not the wealthiest person in the world. And if I was Steve Jobs, what would you do? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
even reading Steve Jobs' book, he went all natural. And he really wishes that he had gone through, medical therapy at the same time he was doing all natural. because the one thing I learned about all natural when I was going through my cancer treatment is that it's slow. Okay. And you have to take it more often, which is why they make these medical concoctions because they're stronger and they last longer. So I did both. I did all natural, but I did the chemotherapy as well.
Because Steve Jobs, he passed at pancreatic cancer.
Hmm.
He was I think a fruitarian,
Yeah.
correct? Was that before the cancer or after the cancer did he become a
From
fruitarian?
what I understand and from what I read in his book, it mostly was after the cancer was
Oh,
diagnosed.
I thought he was that the whole time, and then he still got cancer. Okay, so that clears
Yeah.
some stuff up for
So
me.
I think
Okay,
he was, from what I recall, and I don't have his book in front of me, but from what I recall, is that he was doing like a vegetarian kind of raw food beforehand, but he made it more strict and more specific during his treatment and care. And if you know Dr. Sebi, or Dr. Sebi, as some people call him,
correct, correct.
he in his books have always stated that he cured cancer by the types of foods that we eat. And that the thing with Steve Jobs is he wasn't specific as Dr. Sabai was about his foods. Like if your food was a hybrid of two other foods, like iceberg lettuce, Dr. Sabai would not eat it, whereas Steve Jobs would. So he really, it there's organic, there's healthy
Alkaline.
food. Yeah, there's alkaline, and then there's this controversy about foods that have been created out of other foods, and that a lot of the nutrition that we are needing in our bodies has gone because of the choices we've made to grow food faster. And so, carrots are not the same carrots as they were 30 years ago. Just like beef is not the same beef it was, 30 years ago. We've created foods like iceberg lettuce. We've created foods. I want to say is Brussels sprouts another one. There's so many foods that came out of hybrid planting to make more food for us to eat. That there is a belief in some people that those foods also contribute to toxicity in our system. So everybody really does have a lot of viewpoints. I myself, because my cancer was hormone positive, am a big believer in staying away from chemicals. Okay, so Teflon, um, plastic, heating food up in the microwave in styrofoam or plastic are big no nos. Eating grilled food that's over fire, that is there's a lot of controversial things when it comes to how we cook our food and how we treat our food. And a lot of that is also known cancer. And so it's
Teflon. What you mean by Teflon?
Teflon. If you've ever read or watched the movie Blackwater, it's about the fact that DuPont, who created Teflon or ran across Teflon, understood that as early as the 1950s and 60s, they knew that Teflon caused cancer. And because it was so wanted, it's so used in home goods that they flat out refused to share that information with the FDA or anybody else. So the people that worked at the plants were dying of cancer. The people that lived near the plants were dying of cancer, and clients who were people who were buying Teflon and cooking in Teflon were dying of cancer. And so they just refused to share that information with anybody, and so now you'll see Teflon has what are called PFOAs, and they're called forever chemicals. Once you have them in your system, they don't ever go away. So you need to understand that the more you cook with it, the more those chemicals build up in your system. The more they build up, the more toxicity you've entered into your system. And while you may not be allergic to certain things, you might be sensitive to those chemicals. And those chemicals can now, malform or become malignant. They can go from just being a normal tumor, a benign tumor, to malignant because of the chemicals in that pot or pan that you're cooking in.
So what diet do you follow now?
So what?
What diet would you follow now? Are you on the Dr. Sebi diet, or do you have a
No,
specific
I don't do
diet?
Dr. I don't do Dr. Sabai. I understand good nutrition. I do try to do no hormone. Okay. Mine was a hormone positive cancer. I try to stay away from, I have no plastic, so I don't cook or store my food in plastic whatsoever. I store it in glass. I use cast iron or stainless steel. I don't use Teflon of any kind. I don't use any of these fancy new plates and pans that come out every 5 minutes. I stay away from all those. I don't grill food any longer, just because the stuff that we're cooking our food over is almost as toxic as any stuff you ever want to believe. If people ever looked at what was inside of charcoal, they would never put charcoal underneath their food, especially, commercial charcoal, not that you've gone out and made your own charcoal from like oak wood or something like that. This is the commercial stuff, right? The
Right.
briquettes. If people knew, how bad propane gas was for them in their food, they would never cook over gas again. So I mean, over open flame. So
Right.
there's a lot of things that I've changed, just in that perspective.
Hmm.
But I still eat chicken on occasion. I still eat turkey. I don't eat pork anymore just because that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Um, but I try to do more organics. I try to eat as much fruit and vegetables possible. I try to eat, more fruits and vegetables that are not hybrids. So
Right.
I'm a romaine lettuce instead of iceberg. I'm a, organic carrot instead of, something that's large and big. Carrots should be very small. They should not be
Right.
once you realize the size your food should be versus the way it is, you start to understand that cotton candy grapes are not healthy for you.
Right.
They're a hybrid of something. They've been changed genetically so that they can do this. And a lot of times we're ingesting food that's not genetically healthy for us.
All right.
Mhm.
So, lastly, what would you tell somebody that's just going through it? You went through something, and that's enough to stop people from wanting to be in business, or
Yes.
just kind of move over to the corner and kind of stay out the way rather than limelight anything, or do anything new and progressive
Mhm.
like starting a business. What would you tell somebody that's going through something right now? It's like, man, this is done took over my life, so I need to focus on
Right.
that. Can't
Right.
focus on improving my life past a diagnosis. What would you tell them?
There's a time and a place for everything, and I can definitely appreciate understanding being available for your health first. I would always put, your health first over, something financial, or material, right? But also on the flip side of that, you need something to live for. Some people, they may not get up every day for their own health, but they might get up every day for their business, to make sure their business is taken care of. And there's nothing wrong with having something that motivates you to continue to keep moving. And if you have to be one of those people that says, well, I'll go out and cut the grass, because that's my business, but I don't want to get up and socialize with people, then maybe you do need to have a business cutting across, because you have to get up and continue to live your life. Don't however you choose to live it. Some people go for treatment, some people don't. And that's entirely up to them. But you only get this one life. As far as I know, for everything I believe, you only get one life to live. And um I would hope that they wouldn't live in regrets where, they should have, could have, would have.
Hmm.
No one's ever going to say to you, oh my God, he was such a great cutter of grass. That's not what folks are going to remember about you. They're going to remember how you, either fought or helped somebody, or you were that person that, reached out to them, even though you were sick or whatever the case may be. So you want to continue living your life to the best of your ability, because you only have this one opportunity here on this planet Earth. And, I believe in going out fighting. Go out, have as much joy as you can, do the things that you've always wanted to try, have those experiences, and be kind to people, because you never know what kind of day they've had.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss D. Boutte.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. You hear all the applause. Thank you. This is an amazing. You've been a great podcast guest, and thank you for sharing your experiences and your story and your knowledge.
Absolutely. I'm so blessed that you would even consider me. So I'm looking forward to more of what you do in supporting your podcast even further.
Excellent. So, where can they find you? What should they be looking for? What? Tell them where to
Yeah.
find you and what to do.
I am on TikTok, Didi Boutte. I am okay. I do taxes on Instagram. I am Didi Boutte on Facebook. I try to keep it simple. I don't have any stage names. That's it. I'm on
Uh,
Twitter, but we're not talking about him right now. So, but yeah, I'm the same name, same person, same place, everywhere you go. So,
all right, Didi Boutte on all platforms. Nice and
yeah.
simple. Well, thank you very much, and it's been great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You
All
guys
right.
have a great and beautiful holiday season.
Okay, you take care.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.